Hey, everybody. I have a special treat for you today. I have Meredith and Adam with us today. They had done their adoption process, part of their adoption process with Adoption and Beyond. They did their home study. And so they've agreed to meet with me today to have me ask some questions just to give families a little more insight about the adoption process and to help families along in their journey. I'll have you guys introduce yourselves and then I'll dive into my questions.
So I'm Meredith,
My name is Adam.
and we are in Southwest Missouri, and we are the parents of a 13-month-old son whom we adopted at birth.
Great, good, thank you. So why did you guys choose to adopt a child?
So we struggled with infertility for about 2 years, and we reached a bit of a crossroads where we had some decisions we needed to make. We figured that we would have one chance at IVF, and statistically that probably wouldn't work, at least that first time through. We knew that adoption was an option, and we knew that simply not becoming parents was an option. And so we decided that if we were destined not to be parents, we didn't want it to be because we didn't try. And so we decided that we would look into adoption and see what that would hold for us. And as opposed to it being a case of, well, we're looking for a missing puzzle piece, for us, it was a case of, well, if this process or this journey doesn't end the way we expect it to, maybe we just need a different puzzle. And so that's really the thought process that we had as we started this journey.
Great, thank you. I love the reference to puzzle pieces because, as you know, that's part of our logo.
Right.
Yeah, helping you find the missing piece. What are your feelings about the birth family and what is your relationship like with them?
With every single type of adoption out there, there's always going to be a different birth mother, birth father, birth circumstance. And so everybody's going to be a little bit different. For us, we were only in contact with the birth mother, and the birth father was unknown when it comes to being able to meet Theo and going forward from there. So we really wanted to be in contact with Theo's birth mom. And we're doing the best we possibly can in that regard. We knew that she had a very difficult life, and we did not want to press upon her when she doesn't want to. We want her to reach out to us. But whenever, let's say Theo was born in Louisiana, we reached out to her when the hurricanes hit last year. She was very appreciative of that. And we text her every once in a while to see if she's okay. But like I said, we don't want to press on her. She's doing something to better herself, to make her life better, because we want Theo to always know that, you know, where he comes from the best way possible. And so he can know, you know, this is my birth mom, this is where I'm from, and that he can be happy and proud about that.
Mm-hmm. Great. What do you wish you knew before going into the adoption process that you know now?
How much time do we have? Just kidding. We were discussing these questions earlier as we were just kind of deciding, you know, who wanted to address which ones. And the way that Adam put it is adoption allies and adoption adversaries. We were very pleasantly surprised with the amount of support that we received. And there were so many people in our lives that we didn't know adoption had touched them in some way. And so that was really encouraging. But we also learned a lot about the anti-adoption movement, and in particular for us, because we're a transracial family, our son is Black, kind of learning that some people have very, very strong feelings about that. So, you know, you have to know that going in, and you have to be prepared for that. As much as, you know, it's amazing to be supported by people around you, you have to be prepared for the fact that even though it's not their lives, there are going to be people who have opinions about that. Mm-hmm. And that's just something you have to be prepared for.
Right. Yeah. And we have our families go through transracial training. Did you find that helpful?
Yes. That was one of the things we were going to mention, was the fact that, you know, obviously in the pre-adoptive stage, you have no idea what's about to happen. But even watching some of those documentaries and learning just a little bit about Black hair care, you know, when we found out about Theo and we found out that he was Black, and we only had like 1 month between matching with his birth mother and him being born, that's not a lot of time to prepare, but at least that set the foundation for us. And so we've been working really hard to build upon that. He has a Black pediatrician, he has a Black barber, he has a Black swim instructor, you know, just having as many different cultural guides for him and what we call windows and mirrors, so that we want to make sure that we're providing him a connection to his history and his culture, not just our family's history, because our family history now includes his family history. So having that basic introduction during the pre-adoptive stage ended up being much more helpful than we ever could have realized.
Yeah, a lot of families will bulk about having to do the education, but then everyone in the end says, "Oh, I'm so glad we had to do that."
Big important thing for folks to realize is that when you're going at the start of this adoption process, we have an idea of what we want for our family. Everybody has this mental picture as to who they are as a parent, mother, father, single mother, single father, whatever, it doesn't matter. Everybody has an idea of what they want to have for a family, but what you get is entirely different, and it's going to upend what you think. It could be the child has some kind of thing that you didn't prepare for or didn't anticipate, and it's something that is very important to pay attention to, because it turns you into a better person. But
you also have to be realistic about it. Not all matches are for everyone, and that was something that was really pressed upon us during the pre-adoptive training as well. Of course, we would have loved to have been parents, but we had to be very realistic about emotionally, physically, financially what we could handle.
Yes.
Because just because you think one thing doesn't mean that's how that's going to end up. And so I think a lot of that pre-adoptive training really caused us to think about that very, very carefully, which is super duper important.
Yeah, a lot of times people will apologize and say, "Oh, I don't think I can do this." And I'm like, it's okay. It's good to know that about yourself, because there is a family for every child, and not every child is right for every, every family is right for every child. So I think it's good that people recognize that and don't need to apologize,
Exactly.
I think probably a good thing to keep in mind is you don't need to be a saint for every child. You just need to be the saint for that one child.
That's right. Right. Well said. So why did you choose to work with Adoption and Beyond? And can you talk a little bit about your experience with our agency?
So we chose Adoption and Beyond for a variety of different reasons. I'm Catholic, Meredith is Jewish, and so one of the things that was a big determining factor was the openness of faith. It was not Christian focused. It was not Baptist, Catholic, Methodist, Anglican, Assembly of God. It wasn't any of those. It wasn't Jewish focused. It wasn't Hindu. There was no gigantic religious push, because I feel that we probably in one way or another would have gotten refused by any of those other types of organizations simply because of that. So the fact that we were able to go in here and not feel like we had faith pushed on us from the start was a big determining factor on going forward. The other part was that some of the other agencies that we were looking at or that we had talked to seemed to treat adoption more of a source of financial gain for those organizations, rather than actually doing the right thing, which is provide a good, loving, caring home for a child in need.
As well as supporting expectant parents. We had met with an agency that it didn't feel right. We didn't appreciate how expectant parents were treated and talked about. And would we have matched faster? Possibly. Would we have been able to sleep at night and feel comfortable with that? Absolutely not. So that was a very big deal to us as well.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. So we had you So right now, you guys attended an in-person workshop. Now, we've turned that in-person workshop into an online training.
Mhm.
So, but it's the same content. So tell me, what did you find most informative about the Adoption and Beyond training?
I think the thing that stuck out to me the most was when you had a birth mother come and speak with us. I cried. I'll admit it. I cried everything. But there was a lot of things that we needed to think about. And even though there was a lot in that training, it was really good. Talking about, for instance, the hospital plan, what that might look like. Talking about the constant reminder that the expectant mother, and then once the baby's born, the birth mother, she drives the ship. I mean, this is still her body, her baby, her choice, and having to really, really respect that. And so even though there were some things that I probably was like, oh, it kind of like stopped me for a minute, it needed to stop me for a minute. I needed to hear those things because that is the reality of the situation. So I think that was really, really helpful. I still have my book with my little notes in the other room of all the different things that we talked about that night.
Great.
What was also good and informative about the training is that there was a predefined set of guidelines and standards that every single prospective parent or couple needed to meet before even being considered to be a client of Adoption and Beyond. As a soldier, having guidelines, having regulations and stuff, it's a big deal. And it defines who you are as a soldier, but also your organization to be able to provide the best type of assistance and be able to accomplish the mission. If we did not do our due diligence to learn about all this different stuff, to go forward and become more learned in the circumstance, that just made us better. Now, were we 100% prepared at the day that Theo was born? No, nobody is ever going to be that way.
That's right.
But at least you have ideas and training and knowledge to fall back upon to make you personally better. And quite simply, standing above any other type of person out there who just may say, I want to adopt a child and I don't want to do anything else but spend money. This way, you have expectations, not only the organization, but the parent as well. And you know something better than what you knew than earlier that day. And it just makes those parents that much better.
Great. So what was the best part of your adoption process?
December 6th.
That's our family. We call it our family day. That was the day that we finalized. So
The adoption.
Yeah. So over Zoom, but that was probably okay because again, I was crying. So that's easier to hide on Zoom. Right.
And even though he was fantastic coming home from Louisiana, it was on one day. Nobody wants to go ahead and do 8 to 9 hours straight in one day
with the baby
in the back seat
yeah.
for 15 to 20 minutes.
Never mind the baby.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so we'd say that was probably, yeah, we call it our family day. We're not quite sure what that's going to look like in the future, but we know that we want that to be an important day. It's special for us. I mean, but we also want to acknowledge, you know, it can be a happy day and it can be a sad day at the same time. So that's why for us, even though it was on Zoom, we were kind of glad that we didn't have a lot of family and a lot of people in that, because yes, of course we were thrilled, but as thrilled as we were, that day would have been the hardest day for somebody else, and growing up that may still be a very conflicted day. So finding ways to talk about and celebrate family and all of the different forms that can take on is really important to us.
Exactly. Okay, so you survived the adoptive home study process. What do you want to share with others to help calm their nerves about the home study process?
It is not a gotcha thing.
Yeah, it's not that bad. It's a lot, admittedly. But one of the things that we really appreciated about Adoption Beyond is that it was super organized. It was a checklist. It was just like, okay, take care of this, take care of this. It was all very straightforward. And yeah, it's not designed to catch you in anything. Nobody's trying to, you know, oh, I caught, you know, it's really just about you thinking about yourself as an individual, us thinking about ourselves as a couple, and our home, both emotionally and physically. So, I mean, yeah, like getting into the biography and things, yeah, it seems like a lot, but you just take it piece by piece. You know, I think we each just wrote maybe like 1 or 2 sections a night,
Good.
and it wasn't so bad. And yeah, the renewal process, when we had to renew our home study, it was just such an easy, like, check it off the list, just have this, have that, keep copies of everything.
Yeah.
You tell us that, and it's totally true. But once you have copies of everything, then you can just reach back and go, oh, I have that thing, here it is. And you've knocked out a lot of the process already. So it seems scary, it seems overwhelming, but it's really not that bad. And we kind of talked about, for us as a couple, reading each other's biographies
Good.
was a really good thing. If you're going to go through this kind of process, you need to go through it with somebody that you can be completely open and honest and good, bad, and everything in between. And so having that opportunity to do that together was actually, I think, really, really helpful.
It was a good relationship booster as well, because like Meredith said, being open and honest and available to your partner is a big deal. And when you have to not only write it out because you're trying to do a lot of biography of yourself, but not only is your spouse going to see it, or your partner is going to see it, but the social worker is going to read what you read.
Yep.
And they're going to ask you questions as to, you know, what kind of person are you? You wrote this. What do you mean by this? And how do you think this relates to you wanting to become a parent? Now, again, it's not a gotcha thing. It's not going to be like, when I was growing up, my dad spanked me when I was insubordinate, like the time I set the house on fire. Well, that's a lot different than something else out there. But it's not a gotcha thing. They're not going to open up every single cabinet and say, well, your knives, forks, and spoons are not sorted properly. No, they're going to make sure that you have working smoke detectors, a working CO2 alarm. Do you have a fire extinguisher? Do you have anything lying around the house that is a power tool that the kid may stumble on and hurt themselves?
Right.
Stuff like that, really simple stuff. And if you can go through the simple stuff, right? Honest, objective things about yourself and how that applies to you, your partner, and how you want to be as a parent, it's too easy.
What words of advice do you have for hopeful adoptive families starting their adoption journey?
Be patient, take your time. It is not a fast process, because the most important thing or not the most, but one of the many important things that you need to do is this, be very self-reflective. That's what I mean by taking time. It is a journey, like you said in the question, that's not just simply for you. It's not just simply for your spouse or partner. It is not just simply for your child. It is for everybody involved, including the child's birth parents or birth mother, birth father. It is a big deal that you need to be able to take the time, be patient, look into yourself, pray or meditate as necessary, but take your time. It's a big deal. And you want to do this for all the right reasons, not for what you want or what you need, but for all the right reasons for why you're there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. Very well said.
Yeah, I think for me, it's being realistic in expectations. Nobody owes you anything in this process, and it can be really easy to have a lot of doubt. You know, we tried matching in multiple ways, and we had a few situations that didn't work out, or we would speak with somebody and then all of a sudden we would lose contact, and it was really hard not to take it personally.
Yeah.
And to think every time the match didn't happen, there's something wrong with us. What did we do? And when we finally met Theo's birth mother at the hospital, and we kind of had this moment, we hadn't met in person, and she said, oh my gosh, you're real. And we're like, oh my gosh, you're real. And it almost felt like a first date in a weird way. Like we knew all these things about each other, and yet we didn't all at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had to trust that it wasn't us. You know, we asked her, because when we applied for this particular situation, it was several states away and it was for a Black child. And we're like, we're in Missouri, we're this, Midwestern white couple, whatever. And so when we finally met, we just said, why? I mean, we're just curious to know. And she said, I don't know. As soon as I saw your profile book, I just knew. And it's as simple as that. And you can't manufacture that and you can't force that. And so all those times that we thought there was something wrong with us, all of a sudden this situation that seemed so far-fetched, it was the right situation. And so you just have to manage those expectations and know that you just never know how that's going to come about.
Yeah, you said it so well, is that so many families feel like it's a competition between other families, but really there's just one family that just jumps out at an expecting mom that she just clicks with. And you usually find that you click with her as well because she clicked with you. And so,
yeah, and we're grateful to work with Adoption and Beyond, and ultimately the agency where our birth mother was connected. There's lots of ways to connect outside of that, and for some people it works. But social media and those kinds of things can be a really scary place when it comes to matching and that feeling of competition. I kind of called it the piranha pit. But it works for some people. It absolutely does. But sometimes it doesn't take into account what the expectant family needs. They're sometimes seen as a means to an end. And that's what's great about agencies like Adoption and Beyond, where they're not just a commodity. They're not just this thing that's going to lead to this family. It's so much more complex than that. And so I'd say that's probably some of the advice I would have too, is if people choose to take that other route, which they absolutely have the right to do, you have to proceed with caution. Taking the time to do due diligence through an agency and all of that. Yes, it may take longer, but ultimately, like I said earlier, this is a match that we can sleep at night. We feel, and so I think that's really a need to know that a lot of people I don't think consider.
Yeah, great. Is there anything else you would like to say?
Once everything is said and done and you have little baby in your arms and everything starts going as you being the parents, whether you're the temporary legal guardians until everything is said and done through the states for where you're adopting from, that stuff can wait. As soon as that little baby is in your arms and you're the parent at that time, it changes your world. I had never held a 1-day-old baby before until I had met Theo. Or if I had, it had been nearly 35 years since. So it's been a long time. But seeing him change my world, and he still continuously changes my world. And I don't know who I would be right now without this little guy in my life. And it's so cool to see him grow and also play with our cats.
She wants to know she's part of this process too.
Okay.
She wants everybody to know that.
Glad she joined the show.
Yeah.
Definitely make sure that your cats or dogs aren't too terribly clingy, because that could be a very scary first day home. It's a big world opening experience. It changes everything about your life for the better and for worse, because there are challenges involved that you never would have had before. But it's, when anybody says having children is life-changing, they're not wrong. It really is. And I've really been super happy for being able to get the opportunity to be called dad.
Yeah, that's so cool. So, well, thank you again. I appreciate both of you taking the time to talk with me today and to educate others about adoption and to just make their journey a little bit smoother moving forward. And once again, I just appreciate you guys so much.
Of course. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you again.